my mind. Come on up to standing. Join me. Join me in standing. So we're just going to pause here. This posture, if you're new to yoga, is called mountain. And we're going to play with mountain just a little bit. We're going to bring our feet close together and see how that feels. For some of us, this feels good, but notice what begins to happen in your low back. Maybe it feels better to be hip distance apart. So here are the hip joints. So this, when we talk about hips width apart, right under the hip joints, see how that feels, especially in your low back, especially in your low back. And then take your feet wide and notice how this feels. A lot of times the cues here are going to be hip width apart. However, you might discover that having your feet a little wider, maybe as wide as the pelvis, feels better to your body. I am more interested in making sure that all of us have the capacity to be at ease while we work postures. Now find your way that you want to stand, and we're going to pause here for a moment or two or several breaths. Now lift the rib cage, the heart, let the jaw be soft, and lift the pelvic floor. So if you're familiar with Kegels, lift up in the pelvic floor and we lift the heart. And we might notice that when we lift the heart, the legs start to activate. We can feel the quadriceps begin to strengthen and lift the kneecaps. So as we're pausing here, centered, we're going to take a little bit of time to just settle into this pose. This is one of the most vital poses in yoga, and it can be very challenging. And as we rest in this posture, we might begin to notice that our body wants to move to one side. It might feel better to anchor the weight into the left foot or the right foot. We're just noticing, because those are clues about the psoas muscle, which starts here, dives in to the pelvic bowl and plugs in as hip flexors. And so if we have this tendency, I have a grandson who likes to stand like this, which means that one side is going to be more contracted than the other. So there's going to be more stretch on this side and more contraction in the psoas on this side. So as you go through your day, begin to notice whether or not, like you're standing doing dishes, or any time you're standing, do we cock the hip to one side? For me, it was this side because I carried a baby on my hip, and it took years to undo that. I still feel like I'm undoing it. So the other way that we have a recognition that our psoas is tight and we are not having full cooperation with our body is when we're at the grocery store and it feels better to lean this way onto the handles of the grocery cart. That means this part of our body is not engaging, or it means that this part is in contraction. So now we're going to come to our chair and have a seat. So that was a baseline noticing of posture. We're going to build on this every week. So as you come to your chair, lean back in the chair. Bring your hands to your belly, like maybe around the belly button, maybe just a little bit above the belly button. press in and to catch a sense of the musculature here. And now sit up straight and feel how those muscles begin to engage. Lean back again and see what happens with those muscles. They go slack. So when we're seated and we're leaning back, our core body is offline. So we come forward. And so when we're sitting in our chair, to be able to sit forward, and you know, it's nice to recline, and I'm a fan. However, once in a while, it's very helpful to come into a heart lifted posture, rib cage lifted, and the pelvic floor engaged. So lifting up in the pelvic floor, also known as Kegels. It's also a bandha in yoga, B-A-N-D-A, bandha. And we're just pausing here. And we're breathing. And now we're going to come to standing again. So come on up. We're going to do a psoas press. If you've been here before, you're familiar. If not, we start by pretending like our hands are resting in pockets. And we gently press the pelvis forward. And that's it. This is a psoas stretch. It's bilateral. It's connecting to both sides of the psoas. We're going to come back to neutral. Now bring the feet together and press the pelvis forward. Does this feel better, the same, or does it annoy you a little bit? Come back to neutral. Take those feet to hip width apart. Press the pelvis forward. Notice that. Come back to neutral. Take your feet a little wider, maybe as wide as the pelvis. Press the pelvis forward. So one of the things about the psoas, as I've been researching this, that I find to be very interesting, coming back to neutral, is that it really, with the psoas, it doesn't matter if your feet are close, hip width, wide, or even if they're turned out. Doesn't matter. The psoas is still going to be engaged with any of these postures that we do. So we're coming back to this one. I find for myself that I get a really good stretch with my feet underneath my hip joints. You find your posture here. We're going to bring our hands back to our hip pockets. We're going to press the pelvis forward. So this is more about the pelvis going forward, less about the back bend. And then we're going to take this to the right side. And we're going to extend the left arm. Now release that left arm, keep the stretch here. And now extend that arm again. And if taking the arm above the shoulder doesn't feel good, you can touch the back of your neck with your hand, and the elbow points to the ceiling. We're pausing here and breathing. Everything we do here is going to be deep stretch work. And then we're going to release and come back to neutral. When we come back to center, notice the right and the left side of the body. Notice if one side has more energy, maybe it feels longer or stronger, just noticing. We're going to switch sides now. We're going to press the opposite side of the pelvis forward. Look over that back shoulder. And then extend the hand on the same side that's pressing forward. And notice this stretch. Again, hand can rest gently on the back of the neck. Keep the breath moving here. Another breath. And another. And then we're going to come back to center. And we come back to mountain. So play with, does mountain feel better with my feet together? Maybe hip width apart, maybe pelvic width apart. And as we rest in our favored foot position with mountain, maybe notice if anything feels different in the body. Just noticing is vital to changing anything, to be able to observe from a place of neutrality can allow us to have a greater comprehension of what serves not just the body, but the mind and spirit also. So we're going to go into a variation of a lunge. So this is a slight lunge. It's not a full lunge. So I'm going to turn sideways again. And remember, maybe it's going to feel better to have your feet a little wider or hip width apart. Maybe you like having your feet lined up. That requires a great amount of balance. Find your way into what feels best for you, because we're going to go to a slight lunge. We're going to start by bringing the right foot forward, and we're going to come up onto the ball mound of the back foot. So I have my feet about hip width apart. I know that this might feel better to have the feet a little wider. And again, if you want to turn out that back foot, that's okay. We're going to lift the heart here, lift the rib cage, lift the heart, lift the pelvic floor, then slowly release that back foot toward the floor. We'll get that angle of the pelvis moving forward again as the left side of our body goes back. You control the stance here. So your feet can be closer together than mine. They can be further apart than mine. So as we're here, stretching the left side of the body, we're going to extend the left hand to the sky, and we're going to get a whole fascia train. The whole side of the body is going to stretch. So this top of the psoas all the way into the hip flexors. Keep the breath moving. And one more big breath. And then we're going to come back up onto the ball mound of the foot, release the hand, gently come back to mountain and notice. Notice the right side and notice the left side. And while we're noticing here, one of the important things to remember is the psoas talks to the diaphragm. It's plugged in by the diaphragm. And so you may notice not just the stretch, but maybe it feels like there's more breath on one side than the other. That's an interesting side effect of psoas work. We're going to bring that left foot forward now. Again, you control the length of this step. You might discover that one side, the step is longer than the other, or you immediately feel the tightening taking place in the psoas. So we're lifting our pelvic floor, we're lifting our rib cage, our heart, and we're slowly beginning to lower the foot toward the floor, the back foot, the heel. If you discover that the step is too big, just rearrange your body. We don't want strain here, though we would like to have stretch. And then again, extending the arm on the same side and reaching. And of course, if your shoulders don't like that, you can be here or you can be here. We're just trying to find a way to get the top of the psoas expression recognized as much as the hip flexor. We're breathing here. Keep that breath moving, keep the jaw soft. I got a little bit of bend in my front knee, just a little bit, so it's not locked out all the way. One more big breath. And then that arm floats down. That front knee gently bends. We step forward. I'm going to invite you to shake it out, both sides. We're going to do some lunge work now. This is a deep, deep stretch. We're going to be bringing the foot onto the chair to get the nice deep hip flexor stretch. If that feels too high and you have a block, you can always do this by just elevating the foot ever so slightly on a block. If it doesn't feel good or safe, or it is too deep of a stretch to get the foot on the chair, you can always just go to a regular lunge. We're going to step up to the chair. We're facing the seat of the chair. This posture is called lizard if you're on the floor. We'll get to that another time on a Monday. We're going to take that right leg, bring it up onto the chair. I like to hold on to the back of the chair to arrange my back foot. Again, you can turn that back foot out, or you can be on the ball mound. You can touch the top of the chair, but we're aiming to have the back knee straight. That's the aim. So we're looking to engage the hamstrings back here, like they're lifting toward the ceiling. And we're letting our pelvis gently glide forward toward the seat of the chair. We're breathing here because this is a really deep stretch. Gently, if you're on the ball mound of the back foot, gently sink the heel toward the floor any amount. There's no destination. It's just as the stretch deepens, we begin to have a little more fluidity and mobility in this musculature. Okay, to come out of this, be very careful. Come up to the tiptoes of the back foot. Bring the hands inside the inside of the right foot. Release that foot to the floor. Both hands are resting on the chair. Press the sits bones away. So this is a counter stretch. Let the head slowly lower to between the arms. And we breathe here. And we could feel those hamstrings light up. Bend the knees gently, step forward. Again, you can do this on a block or a sturdy book or stacked magazines, whatever you have, though I highly recommend blocks as part of your yoga practice. Now notice the right and the left side of your body. So we had the right leg on the chair. You might notice that the left foot feels a little more connected, a little more grounded. Let's balance our pelvis out here. We're going to bring that left foot onto the chair. Hold the back of the chair or the seat of the chair as you arrange your foot. And then slowly begin to lower the back heel. And again, you might notice that there is less tension or stretch in one side than the other. That's just to be curious about, nothing to change there. We're pausing here and breathing. And slowly begin to lower that heel toward the floor as your body releases and relaxes in the hip flexor. One more breath. I'm going to bring the hands to the inside of the chair. Release that foot. Bring the feet parallel to each other. Hinge forward. So we were in an asymmetrical pose. Now we're releasing ourselves into a symmetry. Breathe here. Then gently bend the knees. Step forward. And shake it out. We're coming back to our mountain now. We'll play with the feet together. So when we started this practice, putting my feet together annoyed my low back. Now, it's fine. You might notice a difference. Feet, here we go, hip width. Maybe you notice that the right and the left side is a little more grounded. Maybe we feel more contact. I have a tendency to lean heavy on the right foot, light on the left. This practice really helps to bring my feet into a sense of symmetry and balance, because that's what the psoas does. It helps us with movement and it helps us with balance. Maybe we take our feet wide and see how that feels. Lifting the heart, lifting the pelvic floor. And then we're going to make our way back to our chair. So come on, bring the chair back. I hear a phone ringing. It's not mine. We're going to sit down now. Scoot forward onto the edge of the chair. And just notice how the sitting feels now. Can you feel the right and the left side of your sits bones connecting to the chair? We'll gently pause here with some pranayama work. So that's breath work. We're going to breathe in for a 4 count and release for a 7 count. Breathing in for a 4 count and breathing out for a 7 count. You have your own rhythm now. What works for you in your breath? We'll do a couple more cycles of 4 in and 7 out. And then we'll pause in Shavasana. May I be peaceful. May I be happy. May I be free. May I awaken to the light of my true nature. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be free. May you awaken to the light of your true nature. May we be happy. May we be free. Oh, may we be peaceful. May we awaken to the light of our true nature. I invite you to breathe that idea in, the awakening to the light of our true nature. And then opening our arms wide, we gather all the blessings that already exist and we draw them in appreciation and gratitude into our hearts. And together we all say, Namaste.